everyone. Welcome back to Real Life. I hope you're having a wonderful day. If you enjoy these vintage episodes, hit the like button. That helps promote them to like-minded viewers like yourself. Subscribe, and you'll be notified of new episodes. Members get early previews 1 to 2 weeks in advance. There's something new and different every weekend. If you're interested in vintage films and videos from across BC, there are hundreds of episodes waiting for you to discover, some as far back as 1926. You can find them on the interactive map guide located in the details below. Today's episode is some wonderful 8mm film footage of several military parades in Victoria featuring the Canadian Scottish Regiment. Possibly a church parade, a regular parade, and an exercise in the freedom of the city. The regiment is joined by at least one of its cadet corps. The regiment has a long and fascinating history. It originated on 3 September 1912 when the 88th Regiment of Victoria Fusiliers was authorized. When the 16th Canadian Scottish Battalion, Canadian Expeditionary Force, was created in 1914, it drew on soldiers from 4 separate regiments. The 50th Regiment, Gordon Highlanders of Canada in Victoria, the 72nd Seaforth Highlanders of Canada in Vancouver, the 79th Regiment, Cameron Highlanders of Canada in Winnipeg, and 91st Canadian Highlanders, Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders in Hamilton. The desire was not to perpetuate specific regimental identities, and so the new battalion was simply referred to as the Canadian Scottish. The 16th Battalion served in the 3rd Brigade of the 1st Canadian Division. Since its early beginnings, the battalion had a high standard of conduct on the battlefield and was commanded by outstanding leaders. One such leader was Lieutenant General Sir Arthur Currie, who rose to command the Canadian Corps during the First World War. Currie was a master tactician whose skills led the Canadians to victory at Vimy Ridge, Amiens, and the intense last 100 days campaign which ended the Great War. 4 members of the 16th Battalion were awarded the Victoria Cross. Private William Milne single-handedly attacked and destroyed 2 enemy machine gun nests at Vimy Ridge on 9 April 1917 and was killed the same day. Lance Corporal William Henry Metcalf and Lieutenant Colonel Cyrus Peck, MP, won their VCs on the same day, 2 September 1918, during the Canadian Corps capture of the Drocourt-Queant line. Piper James Richardson, who was just 18 years old when he enlisted, was killed on 8 October 1916 during the Battle of the Somme, shortly after having played his company through no man's land. He disappeared in shellfire after going back to retrieve the bagpipes he had laid aside to bring back a wounded comrade. Piper James Richardson's pipes were returned to the regiment in the 2000s after being found on display at a private school in Scotland due to research initiated by Pipe Major Roger Maguire. They were presented to the people of BC on 8 November 2006 at a ceremony on the lawn at the Provincial Legislature in Victoria. The pipes are on display at the Canadian Scottish Regimental Museum located in the Bay Street Armory. After the war, the battalion disbanded, and in the 1920 reorganization of the militia, in the wake of the work of the Otter Commission, a new regiment was created amalgamating the 50th Regiment and the 88th Regiment Victoria Fusiliers and named the Canadian Scottish Regiment. The title, Princess Mary's, was appended in 1948 by permission of King George VI and Mary, Princess Royal and Countess of Harewood, who had consented to become Colonel-in-Chief of the regiment in 1930. Being also Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Scots Royal Regiment since 1927, and to whom the Canadian Scottish had been allied in 1927. The Canadian Scottish were unusual in 1939 in having 2 battalions on the strength of the Canadian militia. The 1st Battalion was mobilized for overseas service in 1940 and trained in Debert, Nova Scotia until August 1941, from where it moved to the United Kingdom as part of the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division. On 6 June 1944, C Company was in the first wave ashore in Normandy on Juno Beach. The rest of the battalion followed in the second wave. The battalion proceeded to advance a total of 6 miles inland, farther than any other assault brigade of the British Second Army that day. The regiment went on to earn 17 battle honours, including one for the liberation of Wagenborgen, a Dutch village. This last honour was not awarded until the 1990s. During the Korean War on 4 May 1951, the regiment mobilized 2 temporary active force companies, designated E and F Company, E Company was reduced to nil strength when its personnel were incorporated into the 1st Canadian Highland Battalion, later the 1st Battalion Black Watch, Royal Highland Regiment of Canada, for service in Germany with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It disbanded on 29 July 1953. F Company was initially used as a reinforcement pool for E Company, and on 12 May 1952 it was reduced to nil strength when its personnel were absorbed by the newly formed 2nd Canadian Highland Battalion, later the 2nd Battalion, the Black Watch, Royal Highland Regiment of Canada, for service in Korea with the United Nations. F Company disbanded in 29 July 1953. More recently, the regiment contributed an aggregate of more than 20% of its authorized strength to the various task forces which served in Afghanistan between 2002 and 2014. The soldiers and cadets are wearing the woolen battle dress in its last years of issue. Very soon, the reserve units would be issued the new dark green CF uniforms, already being worn by regular force members. The regiment wears the hunting Stuart tartan. This 50-year-old footage shows several First and Second World War veterans at the church, with one officer with a Distinguished Service Order. A few faces may be recognized. As well, many locations will be familiar to Victorians, but there have been many changes to the city over the past half-century. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters, members, donors, and subscribers. It's a pleasure producing these fascinating little vignettes for you. If you really enjoyed it, hit the thanks button, as this will contribute to the 4K film scanner that arrives this December. With your generous support, the 4K upgrade project will be a reality this January. Have a great day, be kind, and we'll see you again next time on Real Life.